If you've grown up in church at all and you've ever heard the story of Satan, it's probably gone a little something like this. Satan used to be an angel, and then he rebelled against God, took a third of the angels that were in heaven down to earth with him, and now he rules here on earth. One day he'll be cast down into hell. And growing up, I also had this idea that Satan would also kind of rule hell. So if you were nice to him here on earth, he would give you lenience in hell. But I think a lot of this kind of speculation comes from where people are just saying, oh, that's the story of Satan and you need to believe it because it's in the Bible. It's difficult for us to talk about for a lot of people because they don't know where to actually look when I say in the Bible. There's not like a definite story of Satan where it's like, here's the story of Satan when he was created, how he rebelled, all that sort of details. But instead, we just kind of get snippets of Satan, which is very fascinating to me. The first place that we see him, of course, is in the book of Genesis, where he appears as a snake. Chronologically, the next place that we see Satan show up is in the book of Job, and we really don't see him appear again until we read Matthew 4, where Jesus goes out into the wilderness. But his story is talked about by two prophets. Isaiah and Ezekiel both talk about him, and they're confirming what Jesus says about Satan. Jesus says in the Gospel of Luke that he saw Satan falling like lightning to earth. And both Isaiah and Ezekiel do something that's kind of interesting. They're prophesying against kings and the ruler of their time. Ezekiel is prophesying against Tyre, and Isaiah is prophesying against Babylon. And they use Satan's story as a metaphor to describe the similar fate that's going to happen to these kings. Now, let me explain that for a second. Basically, what happens is in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, Ezekiel's prophesying against Tyre, and he's saying these things, and then he says a prophecy that mimics what we have been taught about Satan and his story, about how he was in heaven and he was worshiping God. He was created matchless in beauty and splendor is what it says. And then iniquity was found in him and he was cast down to earth. And then we see a very similar picture to that in the book of Isaiah, chapter 14. Although it's less referenced with Satan, it's no more equally powerful to show us who he was. It says this in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 through 16. How you have fallen from heaven, O shining star, son of the morning. You have been thrown down to earth, you who destroy the nations of the world. For you said to yourself, I will ascend to the heaven and set my throne above God's star. I will preside on the mountain of the gods far away in the north. I will climb to the highest heavens and be like the Most High. Instead, you will be brought down to the place of the dead, down to its lowest depths. Everyone there will stare at you and ask, can this be the one who shook the earth and made the kingdoms of the world tremble? So here we have a story of the king of Babylon, and this is supposed to be a prophecy against him, but instead it's a story of what happened to Satan. And I think what the prophet here is trying to do is align what is taught about Satan to show the similar faults that are going to be found inside of this king. For example, Satan was called Lucifer. In fact, the King James Version and the New King James Version are the only translations that translate, O shining star, son of the moon. When I did a search of translations on that verse, they translated, O Lucifer. And so basically, Lucifer was supposed to be this angel of light that brought a lot of good and justice and worship to God. But instead, he chose to be an angel of darkness, turning from what he was created to be, just as the king of Babylon was supposed to be a hand that was going to judge Israel and be used by God, and instead he would turn and be used for evil. And then the final part that I want us to focus in on is that last component here, where we see that Satan is going to be cast down into the place of the dead. And Satan, I think, would try to convince us that if we serve him here on earth, then he'll make a cozy spot for us down in hell, when in reality, hell was designed for Satan and for Satan alone. And so how can a prisoner in prison make your life any better? He can't. he's going to be in just the same amount of torment and struggle as all the other people that are in hell, if not more, because he is the reason that they're there in the first place. While there's so much that you can dig into in Isaiah and Ezekiel to learn more about Satan's story, the real thing that I want us to remember is what Satan's goal was. It says in Ezekiel that iniquity was found in him, and that's basically saying that he wanted to sit on God's throne. And Isaiah backs that up, saying, I will ascend to heaven and set my throne above God's star, saying, I want to be the ruler of the heavens. And what's so crazy about this is God goes down to this little inspectable little planet that we call Earth, and he casts Satan down there. He picks up the dust of the earth, and he breathes life into it. He breathes into it. And in sense, he's saying, I'm going to replace you with this. See, I created you to worship me, and now that you want this dust, the least significant thing on earth will worship me. So we have the opportunity to, at the end of our lives, go stand and replace Satan in his role of worshiping heaven that will now be ours. What a beautiful picture that the Lord has designed. Anyways, I hope that this helped give you a little bit more clarity on Satan. If it did, then please leave a like on this video, as it really does help the channel. I'll see you back here tomorrow as we continue to read through scripture together.